Welcome back! Season 1 of Shadowlands is almost upon us, bringing with it a lot more gear and lots of content to do. Now, Shadowlands has got a bunch of different ways to gear up, and quite a lot of freedom in general, so today, you're going to learn all the ways that you can gear up your character for Season 1, how each one of those ways actually works, and how I think you should actually go about gearing. Including gearing up your mind with Skillshare, today's sponsor, and where the first 1,000 people to click my link below will get a free trial, and it's just $10 a month after that. Now, we all play a fantasy game. Many of us love the lore, we've read the books, and if you do, then you've got to hit up science fiction and fantasy, creating unique and powerful worlds with Lincoln Michel. In 1 hour, he nails it. I'm not naturally a sort of prose writer. I'm a bit more of a script editor whenever I work with my friends from the theater side of things. So to actually have him coming in from a different perspective to break things down, give me that structure, I found it to be extremely insightful and very helpful indeed. It's in fact a new Skillshare class pick, and a massive 66% of people had their expectations exceeded. So if you want a guy who has got the narrative chops to actually guide you through creating stories and worlds like the ones that we love, then what are you waiting for? Hit up my link and check it out in the free trial. And that's a free trial that includes everything in Skillshare, so why not? Could be the perfect winter holiday project. A big thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring the channel. And with that said, let's get into the video. At the start of Season 1, world quests will still be scaling the same way that they are now. Not really that much. So, across our guild, we are seeing item levels from world quests in the range of 155 to 164, and that's in spite of most of us having iLvl 175 plus characters. We honestly don't know what this cap is going to end up being. Now, the world quest loot scaling this time, of course, it's being handled a little bit by your item level, but also by your renown. And with week 3, we'll only have renown level 9, and the next upgrade to our world quest item level will be renown level 10. So we just do not know how far that is going to scale up, but we can say that on beta, renown level 29 unlock gear item level around 200 from world quests. And what this basically means is that world quests might be good to get some gear when you're freshly dinged, maybe, but because of the number of weeks until that item level is able to scale up, they're just not going to be that important for most players who are keeping up to date with the game. Thankfully though, we do have the world bosses that are going to be active as of this week. Now, of the 4, we do not know which one will actually appear first, but the way it works is that each week, one of the 4 will be available. Now, these do drop specific legendary memories, so that's pretty important. Think about your classes and if there's anything you really want to get there. And also, item level 207 gear. Now, item level 207 is equivalent to the last 2 bosses of Castle Nathria on normal, and that basically means that doing the world boss it's like the best shot of very low effort gear that you can get each week, so definitely do that. Also remember, Shadowlands has no bonus rolls, so doubly keep your fingers crossed whenever you do kill that world boss. Okay, so we used to have a segment here in this video on Covenant gear, when it's available, when you can actually upgrade your Covenant gear set to be better, and then we looked at the weeks. And we kind of figured that if you're watching this video, this system is probably irrelevant to you outside of transmogrification. So on week 3, this week, you'll be able to pick up 4 pieces of the Covenant set at item level 164. That's it. Over the next 6 weeks, you will unlock your full set and you can get that up to 184. That's Mythic 0 item level. That's what most people are around now. So yeah, I mean look, being able to secure 184 gear for your alts super quickly, that might be really good in the future, barring perhaps the anima costs, but for now, it's entirely outpaced by everything else. I understand Blizzard probably implemented it as a bit of a backup, but right now, it just feels like the weekly cap of the renown system is really holding back this gear actually being that relevant to people. Now then, as always, there's also gear from Reputation, so this is one where if you've been very diligent with your world quests and your callings, you should be approaching Revered, or maybe a bit closer to Exalted, soon enough with the 4 main shared factions. Now, each of these offer a 181 piece at Revered and a 200 piece at Exalted. This, again, it's at best some nice backup for an unlucky slot, maybe you don't get it covered via something else, but this is not going to hold up to the more serious sources of gear in the game in the long run. Mythic +1 starts off awarding item level 187 from the end of the dungeon, going all the way up to item level 210 at the end of a Mythic +15 dungeon. More on that perhaps low-seeming number in a little bit. Now, another thing is that since Titan Forging is gone and regular loot is therefore more valuable, well, that means a Mythic Plus actually drops less gear overall. The end of dungeon chest will only have one piece of loot with one extra for completing it in time. Now, every level that you do above a Mythic +15 will add a 20% chance of extra loot as always. Overall, this will slow down the feeling of gearing initially because you'll literally be getting less gear, but the big difference is the chance of the gear that you get actually lasting and mattering for you in the long run will be a decent bit higher. And this means you can actually finish gearing on your character instead of just hitting a wall of just trying to get better and better and better in the Titan Forge lottery. And basically, there's no real way to advise you to go faster here for gearing except, get your group together and do as many high keys as you can. That's basically it. Next up, raid stuff. So this is mostly working like usual, again without Titan Forging. So LFR drops 187, normal drops 200, heroic gives 213, and mythic is 226. But the last two bosses drop items that are 7 eye levels higher for each difficulty, and that does actually mean that mythic gear from the last two bosses is literally the best gear you can get in the game by its item level. Now, a big change here is actually the addition of weapon tokens. So instead of weapons dropping from bosses, instead these class tokens drop, right? Now, these tokens can be then traded in at your Covenant, you've probably ran into the NPC by now, for your choice of weapon. That's pretty cool, your choice of weapon. This should really smooth out the gearing of weapons quite a bit for groups, but more importantly, it will let you get some great looking weapons to actually match your Covenant. So that's raid gearing, largely the same, but the same cannot be said for PvP. PvP gear is simple and effective. So your unrated PvP gear's upgrade cap will go up to 184 with Renown level 7. Now you might think, cool, what about then the higher upgrades, the 7th upgrade of that gear? Well, unfortunately for you, it's going to be stuck at that for a long time because the maximum upgrade does require, Renown level 22 to get item level 197. And Renown level 22 is still a good number of weeks off. However, with the beginning of this season, something new is happening. You will be able to earn Conquest and buy rated gear. Now, this gear starts off at item level 190, and it will be upgradable with Honor, right? But that is going to be based off your PvP rank. So if you don't have the rank, you won't be able to do the upgrade. But if you do have the rank, then Honor is the currency you'll be using to make that upgrade. Now, it's worth noting here that we don't have the most complete information on this from Blizzard, but we do believe that you'll be able to upgrade this gear all the way up to item level 226 based on your PvP rank and progress, leaving it on par with Mythic raid gear. But of course, getting a rating high enough to get that Mythic raid gear will be extremely challenging. Now, Conquest is the currency that you actually buy the rated gear with, okay? So Conquest will have a weekly cap, and it always will be gear that will have versatility on it. Now, versatility is generally a great stat for PvP, but maybe not always for PvE, at least depending on your stat weight. So it may not be the best gear, even if it's a pretty darn dependable way to get high item level gear. And importantly, high item level gear of a slot of your choice. Now that means that to me, as somebody who's primarily going to be a heroic raider in this expansion, yeah, PvP gear is super interesting because you can target the slot. So, pretty cool stuff. Next up, Legendaries, where they really serve much the same purpose as they did in Legion. They give you a super good power, and they also block off a slot. Now, a rank 1 Legendary, which costs 1250 Soul Ash to make, is item level 190. Rank 2 is item level 210, costing 2000 Soul Ash. And in week 3, we'll be able to bring our total Soul Ash on our character up to 2,590, assuming you've done all of your Torghast clears. Now, in terms of gearing, This actually means that as of the start of Season 1, you'll be able to make a Rank 2 Legendary, although maybe you'll want to make 2 Rank 1 Legendaries instead, depending on what your gameplay situation is. Now, in the coming weeks, you'll be able to upgrade these all the way up to item level 225, and then eventually 235, of course, with more Soul Ash being used. So basically for this, just do the highest difficulty layer of Torghast on both wings every single week. Do that, and that's basically it. The really good legendaries will come before you know it. The Great Vault is very interesting, very powerful, and a little bit complicated. Simply put, right, it's the replacement for the weekly chests that we've had in the last 2 expansions. What's different is it has 3 tracks of progression: Mythic Plus, Raid, and PvP. So if you look at it here, there are 9 slots in total, 3 for each of those activities. And you will get to pick one piece of gear, right? One piece of gear after the weekly reset from here on out. Now, this gear's item level and stuff will depend on the content that you've done, but given that you get potentially 9 slots and a bunch of choice, yes, this is basically some of the best gear that you can possibly acquire, and the more that you play the game, the more choice you are going to have. There's no more getting, say, bracers 3 weeks in a row like what would sometimes happen in the past. So, in the raid category, the amount of choice is based on the number of bosses killed, and the quality of the loot is based on the difficulty which you killed them. So, you need to kill 3 bosses for one option, 7 for a second, and 10 for a third choice. Now, if you kill 3 bosses on Heroic, then your first choice will be Heroic quality. If you then kill another 4 bosses on normal difficulty, then the sort of 7 kill choice will be normal quality. So yeah, basically, it's always worth pushing for those breakpoints on, as hard a difficulty as you can do. Now, the actual loot table is basically just the Castle Nathria loot table, but because the last 2 bosses drop higher item level gear, their loot's only going to be available if you've actually killed those bosses on the right difficulty before. So that might seem like a lot to take in, but it's basically just do a whole bunch of raid content and you'll get decently guaranteed good stuff in the box. Now, for Mythic Plus, it works similarly, but it's also a bit complicated. So the count for unlocking your 3 different slots is doing 1, 4, and 10 Mythic Plus keys. And a good way to cut through the whole thing and look at it is this. The first reward choice will be your highest key. The second reward choice will be your 4th highest key. And the third reward choice will be your 10th highest key. So, if you wanted to get 100% the best gear, you would do like 10 Mythic Plus 15s. If your 10th was a Mythic Plus 12, then that's what would be in that box. But if you did 11 and, 10 of those 11 were Mythic Plus 15, then you would get a Mythic Plus 15 tier bit of gear from the third choice. I know that can seem a bit complicated, but you kind of just need to get a feel for it, right? But yeah, Mythic rewards are, of course, bumped up for your weekly box as per usual, and that means that a Mythic Plus 15 will drop a 210 item level at the end of the dungeon, but will get you a 226 from the Great Vault. Now, what's also interesting is that Mythic Plus 14s also drop item level 266 this time. We'll throw a full table of, the loot up on the screen now so you can basically see what sort of stuff you want to target. And if you want to make a rough equivalence between Mythic Plus and Raiding, then basically Mythic Plus 14 is roughly the same as Mythic Raiding, and Mythic Plus 7 is about the same as Heroic, as far as the gear is concerned. Now, earlier, when talking about Mythic Plus item level, we did say we'd come back to it, right? Mythic Plus does cap out at item level 226, and that does mean that the last 2 bosses of Mythic Raiding do literally offer the best possible gear in the game. Now, that for some Mythic Plus players is a bit unfortunate because their absolute base is in a raid, but overall, I don't think this has got a massive impact, and certainly I think the organizational effort of, clearing Sire Denathrius on a Mythic raid is a little bit higher than, a 5-person type of content. Then we've got the PvPers who are also catered to. So the gear that this offers will be based on your PvP rank, and the amount of choices is based off the amount of honor that you earned from doing rated PvP activities. So that's honor gained from doing rated battlegrounds and rated arena. And those tiers are 1250 honor, 2500 honor, and 6250 honor. So if you play like crazy, you really should be able to get a nice selection of Conquest gear. Now, then, as an aside, I should note, you will be able to choose the Stygia currency if there is no gear that you want. If you are super close to BIS, then this basically means that you'll be able to get a bunch of Stygia, which of course will then turn into gem slots, right? Because you can get gem slots in return for Stygia from Venari a bit later on in the expansion. I just wanted to mention an important thing here. A lot of people might be thinking, wow, I can complete gearing. Whatever will I do? Well, there is a little bit more that you can do to really optimize your character, bar just pulling the Titan Forging lever. You can identify your BIS, best in slot, via something like raid bots or going to your class Discord, right? You could do that and you could then work out, oh, what is the gear that I really want to target on my character? And you could try to work towards it. In a way, the new sort of Titan Forging, that's not really a good way to put it, but like the new thing to do is to be thinking about getting better and better stats for your character, right? Like you won't be able to run the same dungeon again and again and again to get higher item level gear by getting lucky. Instead, you'll be running, say, more dungeons and just doing more types of content to get more gear at a similar-ish item level, and then really thinking about what is the best stats and just like build for my character. And really what this means, though, is that you'll be able to be more done with your character and feel basically less pressure. And that means that you can be content with your progress and perhaps feel a bit more free to play other aspects of the game, well, as you like. So that's how to gear in Season 1. All these systems can feel obtuse, but mostly, even if it does seem a bit complicated, the through line is that Blizzard have tried to make it so you can just play the game, right? Pick your poison, play the hell out of it. If you want to gear a bit faster or have a bit more options via the Great Vault, then do lots of different types of activities. That's essentially what's going on here. Now, the way that I would say it, my personal recommendation, would be to, do the Mythic pluses that you're content to do the raiding that you're content to do, and then when it comes to spending your conquest points or things like that, personally, I would normally wait until, I've, say, done all of my raiding for the week to make any of those purchases. Because imagine you purchase, shoulders, right, using conquest gear, and then you do a raid, the same night, and some shoulders drop that kind of replaces what you just got with Conquest. You wouldn't really feel that good. So that's usually how I would play that personally. But for the most part, yeah, just go do the content. You don't have to worry about corrupted gear, or you don't have to worry about Azerite, you don't have to worry about benthic gear, you don't have to worry about Titan Forging. It's just, it's way more simple. And for me, that's really good, because it means I can just know what's good for my character, get what's good for my character, and when I'm content, I'm content. I think this is a really big step forward in the gearing for World of Warcraft, even though in many ways it is literally a step back, because we're going a little bit more traditional as far as MMOs go. So that's it for me. This is all you need to know to gear up your character in a real good way in Season 1 of Shadowlands. I hope you found this useful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.